Welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television. It is a very beautiful morning in the nation's capital here in Abuja. And of course, our show is coming to you live from our studio. Indeed, it's been a long weekend, with a lot of stories coming both from national and international scene where a lot of sad situations have been happening. Let's not forget the hardship in the country, the insecurity, and then moving past, across border, a lot of African countries also battling with a whole lot of insecurity and sad situation in that scene. But then anyways, we'll be talking about a lot of things on the show this morning. I am Sumaya Abubakar. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning, Abdullah.
Okay, I was actually going to ask you, are we getting rid of good morning now because of the situation in the country? Because I didn't hear good morning. You just said
I was saving it for the last.
Yeah, but we're at a point where saying good morning to someone is almost sounding insensitive because we know the situation in the country. There's nothing good to write home about, right? I mean, we thank God for life and everything else, but of course, as far as the temperature, the mood in the country is concerned, there's really nothing cheerful about what Nigeria has been experiencing over the past couple of months. We've seen lives upended. We've seen a level of disenchantment that I have never seen in all of my existence in this country.
Indeed.
I mean, I've heard about the Great Depressions in the past, going back 100 plus years ago, but this does sound eerily familiar that we're heading down this particular path, Sumaya. It's not necessarily about the data and what the data is saying. You get that sense that people are at that lowest point where, listen, there are people who just months ago would never ask you for 1 naira.
Indeed.
Now they're openly begging to put food on the table for their families, for their loved ones, for their brothers, for their siblings, for their children, for their wives and things like that. So it's really an unfortunate situation that we've found ourselves in. And truth be told, I know that sometimes, the economy is not always going to be in a balanced situation where everything is going great, but Nigeria doesn't have to be in this situation. It's not a natural state to be in, especially given all the potentials and all the resources that we have available to us. And unfortunately, we're hearing more and more of those warnings, the latest coming from the Africa Development Bank, saying that, listen, we are on the brink of social unrest. And I dare say that we're this close to witnessing what happened just a couple of years ago with the NSAS movement. And we've seen it right now taking different shapes and forms over the past couple of weeks, with the NLC saying that, it is going to embark on a march. You can only imagine what that is going to look like.
Indeed.
But there is a sense that everybody is on the same page.
Yes, I think for the first time, since the President Tinubu's led administration, the whole of or majority, say, of Nigerians are with the NLC. And there is this kind of sense that a lot of people would actually come out to embark on this protest, because it's not looking
it a march, but
yes,
it would be wrong to call it a protest.
Indeed, even though it definitely would be peaceful, because with already the country is in chaos, so definitely nobody wants to come out and destroy things and all that. But then definitely people are feeling the heat, and Nigeria, for that one of the most populous nation, a popular one in Africa, it's not looking good for us at all. So it's really a sad situation.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at the headlines for you this morning. I'll give you a sense of the news that is making the rounds. We start, of course, with the obvious, the economic hardship in the country. Federal government's reforms agenda worsening the situation, according to Catholic bishops.
The FCT police nab chef for kidnapping 12-year-old boss's son.
Careful who you bring into your home. And rising cooking gas price, Nigerians resort to charcoal and firewood, or fuelwood, as the environmentalists will call it. So, these are some of the ripple effects of rising energy costs in the country.
We're back to square one again. All right, now the details. Now, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria has said the reform agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has added to the plight of the citizens and worsening their conditions. President of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria, Most Reverend Lucius Iwejuru Ugoji, said this at the formal opening of the 2024 First Plenary Assembly of the CBCN at the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria Resource Center, Abuja, on Sunday. The program had as its theme Synod of Synodality, Areas of Concern for the Church in Nigeria. Gorgie said with the end of the fuel subsidy regime and the unification of the foreign exchange market, there has been a significant increase in the pump price of petroleum products and a steep decline in the value of the naira, thus increasing the hardship experienced by Nigerians. Ogoji said the rising inflation has made it difficult for average Nigerian to access basic commodities, including food items and medication. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria president noted that as the government demands additional sacrifice from the struggling masses, Nigerians are expecting to see a drastic cut in the cost of running the government at all levels. On security, Ugoji said despite the huge sums of money appropriated monthly as security votes, communities have continued to experience persistent insecurity. He said recently that there has been an upsurge in kidnapping for ransom, an increasing incidence of senseless bloodshed across the nation, and that is a fact. I mean, we've seen the numbers rise from the middle of last year until now. You know, the level of kidnapping has become too much. People are already seeing it as a business. I mean, nobody is actually, just few people have been, caught, and of course they pay the price for this, but a lot of people get away with it,
Yes,
and that is why it has encouraged more people to come out and use the economic hardship as an excuse, to steal from people, to cause a huge lot, a whole lot of, traumatic stress on people.
I think if you look at cause and effect, the rise of crime and criminality in the country is as a result of this critical economic situation that people are dealing with. People always, the survival instinct kicks in. And we know how the family system has been dysfunctional for quite some time now. So we have a lot of immoral people in our society who are willing to do the hard work if it's available, but can easily be persuaded to join the ranks of the criminal underworld, especially because unemployment is high, poverty is rife, and we understand that it's easier to manipulate people to do all these criminal activities, especially in this dire time. They could do it for as low as 5,000, 10,000 naira, because where would they see it, right? And unfortunately, this is the situation that we have to deal with for now. But moving on to other developments, talking security, the operatives of the Federal Capital Territory Police Command have arrested a suspect for masterminding the kidnap of his boss's 12-year-old son. The child was kidnapped on February 10, 2024 at Jabi district of Abuja. The FCT police spokesperson, SP Josephine Ade, said the suspect, a domestic worker who serves as a chef to the family, was arrested by officers at the Utako Police Divisional Headquarters that were following up an investigation to rescue the abducted boy and also arrest the perpetrators. She noted that the investigations by the police revealed that the principal suspect, who has since confessed to the crime, conspired with others who are currently at large to commit the crime. She noted that investigations by the police have revealed that the principal suspect, who has since confessed, is now in police custody. The suspect had earlier forcefully obtained a cash sum for the family as ransom from the victim's father. Now, the arm of the law, however, caught up with the criminals following intensified efforts by the police, and the boy who was rescued unhurt has been reunited with his parents, and the cash sum earlier extorted equally recovered. I mean, we take this small win, Sumaya. It's good to know that our police are still viral, active, and can get the job done. And, stories like this give you a sense of hope.
Indeed.
As traumatic as it might be for the families involved, it is better safe than sorry. At least their boy is back.
Indeed.
And then the
so
parents
it's a
will do
happy
the
ending.
needful. Yeah.
It had a happy ending.
That's why it's, you never can really tell a person's true character, especially when you bring under your roof to work for you and you pay them and then they exploit you in this particular manner. It's just really unfortunate.
It hurts more. I mean, the people close to you tend to do more damage than a stranger.
Who cooks for the family.
He could easily have poisoned them. When you have a thought of he could do something like this. But I mean, kudos to the Nigerian police force. You're doing well. We're seeing a lot of your efforts, and we appreciate that. And of course, we hope that the state policing also would assist in curbing, this level of insecurity affecting our country. All right, away from that, some Nigerians in some parts of the country have resorted to using charcoal as the cost of liquefied petroleum gas, otherwise known as cooking gas, has continued to skyrocket. This is just as the cost of charcoal has also risen owing to high demand, with some people switching to firewood. Residents in Abuja, Kano, Lagos, and Jos now fill a 12.5 kilogram cylinder of cooking gas with about 18,000 naira. That's a huge amount. The Nigerian Association of Liquefied Petroleum Gas Marketers had last year predicted that a 12.5 kg cylinder would cost 18,000 naira, going by the frequent increases. But last November, following a rise in the price of cooking gas per kg from about 700 naira to above 1,100 naira, the Minister of State Petroleum Resources, Ekperi Ekpo, constituted a committee headed by the Chief Executive of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed, to come up with recommendations on how to boost supplies and crush the price within a week. Despite that assurance, the price of the cooking gas has continued to increase, with a kilogram selling for 1,400 naira in some parts of the country. I mean, this is a situation of be careful what you wish for. The predictions actually has come to pass. It's happening now.
At this point, Sumaya, I don't know whether our patience as a people is taken for granted, or I don't even know whether to be proud that we're still persevering and we're still patient with the government to allow those reforms to kick in and have the desired effect to make life easier, or at least bearable for average Nigerians. Because before now, the situation was already bad. It was really bad. We're talking about 130-something million plus Nigerians in multi-dimensional poverty. We know that the estimates are close to correct, but the truth of the matter is it is a lot more than what those estimates was able to capture.
Indeed.
So you can imagine from then to now, those situations have become worsened, because there are a lot of middle-class families that are no longer middle class right now, that they're barely trying to make ends meet. And let's not make it look as if charcoal or fuel wood is cheap. No,
Exactly.
It's just, affordable compared to gas. And we talk about the recent appearance in COP28 and the commitments to addressing climate change and all of this. This is going to worsen the situation.
Exactly. I mean,
so
we saw how
taking
the
2 steps forward and then 3 steps backwards. So it's not really progress.
The body, came out to address the issue, saying that there is a prediction of heat. It's going to be in the coming weeks.
This year is going to be.
Then imagine a ton of people that are already using gas and going back to charcoal, and it will definitely not help. The air, the environment, and that is what people spent a lot, or most countries spent a lot of money to attend COP28 to get rid of that.
I wish I was born in the 60s.
But then, indeed. But at the end of the day, it boils down to us Nigerians. So one thing you made mention earlier of the fact that we tolerate, we persevere, things for the longest time. I feel like we don't really push when it comes to holding people accountable. Sometimes they hold people accountable. It's on the
border of docility. It's like, if we're docile, it's like we can't fight for.
You see a situation of maybe someone did something and then the police arrest the person, or there's probing, and then the same Nigerians that have been crying, oh, they've been looting our money and all that, would come and be like, no, it's too much, have mercy on him. So we use the emotional card, we use the religious belief, like, no, it's just meant to be, and we don't push for.
And I'm sure that's not how destiny is supposed to work. God is in control of your destiny, but you're also in charge of your everyday life. And this is our everyday lives.
Indeed.
And we have to push and hold our leaders accountable. Make sure that they're actually saying and doing what they're saying. Make sure they match their words with action. And hopefully we get out of these words in no distant future. Let's take a look at some of the packages we have for you this morning. We start in Kaduna, where leaders of Fulani extraction across Senegal, Mali, Cameroon, Niger and Nigeria are meeting to find solutions to the prevailing security challenges affecting their community and Nigeria, as well as other countries across the region. The meeting holding in Kaduna is, among other things, set to address threats to trans-border trade across the region. Trust TV's Bello Musa has more on the story.
Banditry, kidnapping, and other trans-border crimes were the thrust of discussions at this crucial meeting of the Fulani leaders in some African countries. According to Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, the lingering farmer-herders conflict and other crimes have crippled the economy of the Fulani, especially in Nigeria.
The situation is that many Fulanis fail to understand the wealth given to them by God. That's why problem is still persisting.
It was because of insecurity. Farmers couldn't go to the farm. That's why today we are complaining. There's hike in food, or food are too expensive in this country. Had it been there's security, farmers are there to go to their farm and do what is needful, we won't have all this complaint.
Stakeholders at the meeting said profiling Fulanis as criminals is worrisome and a setback in the fight against crimes, as they are willing to assist the government in tackling the menace.
We deem it necessary to come together so that we can iron the problem between the herders farmers in Kaduna State, Plateau State, and other states in the country. And this is because what is happening today in the country is becoming unbearable,
They are coming. Why are we inviting these West African state leaders of Fulani? Because of transborder crime. The Fulanis have been alleged, like I said, with the crime and criminality, and there's transborder crime. We are looking towards nipping and controlling and bringing to a total full stop the problems, security problems that is being alleged to be coming from the Fulani angle.
Representatives of the Fulani groups from other countries also emphasized the need to curb farmer-herders clashes and transborder insecurity.
They are all one Fulanis. Therefore, I am calling for unity and peace among Fulani from Senegal, Mali, Cameroon, Nigeria, and the rest. Fulanis in West Africa are of the same root, as we are facing different security challenges. I call on the Fulanis to be peaceful and also remain in one place so they can build their houses and enroll their children in school. That's the only solutions to our problems. I have been to many countries in Africa, and everywhere I go, I see Fulanis doing well. So we have a lot to contribute to address security challenges.
After this meeting, they said a robust meeting with the Defense Headquarters, National Intelligence Agency, and other security operatives will be held in Abuja to engage Fulani leaders in some West African countries to discuss ways to tackle insecurity. Bello Musa, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
I mean, this is a huge step, in curbing insecurity. We all know how, some Fulanis tend to get manipulated into taking, doing these heinous crimes and activities.
Yeah, and there's a lot of scapegoating, there's a lot of profiling. Sometimes you can understand where people are coming from because these are their experiences and you cannot minimize it or water it down. But the reality is engagements like this, if they're acted upon, can actually help us get things, turn things around, especially across the border, because we know that by their culture, by their, standard of, operations, they're migratory in a sense that's basically why they're called nomads, right? They move from place to place. So since that is not going to change anytime soon, because that is part of their tradition, we have to find a way as a society to incorporate it. And those bad eggs within the elements that we're talking about need to be fished out.
Can be easily
and it's best
identified.
to work with the community to fish out the bad eggs within that community instead of,
painting
everybody with the same brush to say that, the entire community is a part of the problem.
Indeed, and it's something that would definitely
be interesting to also know if Bello actually understands French in full day.
I'm sure he found his way around it. Okay. I mean, the job Abdul that he was sending towards Bello Musa. Bello Musa, we appreciate that report. Moving on from That report, the Oyo State Police Command has arrested 2 suspects who specializes in using human heads and other vital organs for ritual. Now, they were arrested in possession of a human skull in Saki town. The report.
It is the end of the road for these criminals who risk lengthy jail terms if found guilty for the crimes they are accused of. Oyo State Commissioner of Police Adebola Amzat, while addressing newsmen when he paraded the suspects, revealed that through intelligence they were able to apprehend the killer of a retired permanent secretary in Oyo State, Olaitan Gbenle. Gbenle was gruesomely murdered by the suspect at her apartment in the Apata area of Ibadan on the 10th of November 2023.
Retired permanent secretary who was brutally murdered in her apartment around Agbede Agbofiati community, Apata area of Ibadan, on 10th of November 2023, just bringing closure to one of our intricate high-profile cases for 2023. The 2 vehicles and a generator stolen from her after being killed were recovered, while 5 suspects who jointly participated in the killing of the deceased were arrested by men of the command monitoring.
One of the suspects explained that they had killed the victim for fear that she could recognize them and report to the authorities.
We went there to go and rob her. So after we rob her, because he knows the person that took us there and the security has seen the person, that is why.
The person that took you there, how did the person get the information? Who is the person?
He's the person that you have spoke with for the first time because he stays around in that place.
Police also arrested 2 other suspects in possession of a human skull, which the police said was cut off from a freshly exhumed corpse at a cemetery in the Shaki area of Oyo State.
The person who did beside me is Abdullah, and I told him that I need dead body skulls, and he told me that I should not worry. And the next day, I just found the skull under one motor parked inside my compound. I'm not the one find itself. It is my landlord.
The police said they also arrested a group that allegedly attacked a pregnant woman and her husband while on their way to the hospital for delivery. Those arrested were accused of armed robbery, car theft, and diversion of vehicles laden with goods.
The level of cruelty and the agency that people use to perpetrate some of these crimes are just so unimaginable to any right-thinking human being. And kudos to the Nigerian police for exposing and, of course, apprehending people like this in our society, because we need to make an example to help deter others from going down this path. But, of course, Sumi, once again, this signposts how rotten the society is getting by the day. You look at the desperation with robberies turning to homicides, with people buying human body parts to, do rituals because they're trying to make money and things like this.
And the fact that they actually believed it, because I see these young men, that actually did these heinous crimes, and they look really poor.
Yeah.
I'm like, for how long were you deceived
the
that
richness
you
will
could
always
continue to catch someone's
if you
head?
go down this path? Yeah,
it's really sad.
It's more reasons why people should not believe in these acts as a get rich quick scheme. Anyway, moving on to some of the day's other stories. As Nigeria continues to grapple with soaring food prices, staple foods have become unaffordable for many households due to fluctuations in pricing. Yam flour, commonly known as elubo lafun, a popular choice in southwest Nigeria, has seen a sharp spike, costing about 200,000 per bag, a 25% increase on the previous price just weeks ago. Victoria Tokulo visited flour markets in Lagos for a situation report and filed in this report as presented from our studio.
Nigerians are accustomed to consuming staple foods such as yam flour, plantain flour, and cassava, but their prices are currently experiencing significant increases. Yam flour, known as elubo, lafun, and commonly consumed in the Yoruba region of Nigeria, has seen a notable price hike, with a bag now priced at 200,000 naira compared to 160,000 naira previously. Gari, a staple in Nigerian households, has also surged in price to 50,000 naira, while white cassava, which is known as lafun, has risen to 25,000 naira, with a pint of it now costing 2,500 naira. Plantains, recognized for their nutritional value, now command a price of 3,000 naira per pint. Gari sellers shed light on the reasons behind these price escalations.
We have three types of gari here. We have Cotonou gari, we have Ijebu gari, we have Eba gari, and we also have gari from Delta. We are selling bag of gari 7,500 naira before. Now the gari is now 50,000. I mean the Eba gari. The drinking and eba is now 55,000 naira. 20 plastic is inside.
There is no money, and we don't know how where our money for this country go. Hungry is killing people. I'm selling it in a day. I could see how many 2 or 3 people who will ask me how much could you sell it.
Very, very expensive. Now, right now, I'm buying a bag for 45,000 naira. So people, how did you expect me to resell it? Now, when I got 2.5, people are running away. They will not be able to buy. So the government should help us to work on this. This is too much. We can no longer bear it any longer.
Nigerian citizens who rely on staple foods, particularly gari, as part of their daily diet, are voicing their frustration over the significant increase in price. As essential consumers of these commodities, they are deeply affected by the rising costs, and many are airing their grievances about the financial strain it imposes on their households.
Yes, ma'am. Tell the Nigerian government, we women are crying for the suffering of this Nigeria. It's too much. We cannot carry the responsibility of family because of increasing the resources of Nigeria. Where are we going?
Before we buy a pint of gari at 1,350. But now we are buying pint of gari 2,000 plus, 2,500.
In addition to exploring the soaring prices of staple foods, Trust Television ventured into the grinding areas where these essential commodities are processed. A pint of elubo lafun costs 1,200 naira for grinding, while a tin of tuwo, which is white cassava, are both grounded for 800 naira each. Stephen Hamzat operates a grinding machine. He said prices are increasing because of the expenses incurred in maintaining and fueling the equipment used.
Before, we are grinding it from 1,000 by a tin of gold, 1,000 naira. We are buying petrol, 1 litre, 200 naira, 190. Now, petrol is 630.
Nigerians are urging the federal government to introduce price control mechanism to monitor prices of food items in the market.
That's our situation there. In a remarkable achievement, Grace Ndidi Anikwe has urged her name in the annals of academic excellence as the first, or annals rather, as the first graduate to attain a first-class degree in early childhood education from the Department of Educational Foundation in the Faculty of Education at the University of Jos. Her journey to this milestone was not without its trials and tribulations, as she navigated numerous hurdles and balanced academic rigors with campus social activities. However, her unwavering determination and steadfast commitment propelled her towards this extraordinary accomplishment. Dixon Adama tells us more about the pursuit of greatness. His report as presented from our studio.
Early childhood education stands as a cornerstone in nurturing the holistic development of children, encompassing a diverse array of experiences and activities spanning cognitive, social, emotional, and physical domains. Students embark on a journey marked by teaching practice, hands-on practicals, and rigorous research endeavors. Amidst the demanding academic landscape, students pursuing this course find themselves challenged yet inspired by the faculty's unwavering commitment to academic excellence. As they navigate the complexities of their studies, they are fortified by a robust framework of academic standards and rigorous coursework.
It wasn't easy at all, but one thing I know I did well was to discipline myself. I disciplined myself. I tried as much as possible to achieve my daily goals. I prioritize attending lectures no matter what I do. I make sure I attend my lectures. I write my tests. I do my assignments. And one of the things that helped me more was my project.
Embarked on her academic journey with a blend of anticipation and apprehension, acutely aware of the challenges within the Nigerian societal fabric, where merit often takes a backseat. Despite her triumphant graduation with a coveted first-class degree, Grace finds herself grappling with the sobering reality of securing a job commensurate with her exceptional qualifications. Her concerns echo the pervasive sentiments of countless graduates navigating the daunting job market, where meritocracy remains elusive amidst competing factors.
I feel excited. I feel satisfied that my effort, has been crowned with excellence. And I feel happy, seeing people posting you online, people calling you to congratulate you. It's a moment of happiness.
She advised young girls on campus to prioritize their studies over their meaningless distractions.
Knowing what and being focused, knowing what took you to the university and being focused is classy. So I wouldn't say I didn't really enjoy the social life because I was the vice president of my association. I also engaged in so many extracurricular activities in the university and even outside the university.
The award, according to Grace, will inspire her to add value to the society, explaining that she is working on starting an online literacy club named where parents will be taught simple ways to teach their children how to read and write.
Well, congratulations to her. She's no longer in, the favor market now. Is actually, or rather, is it the favor market now instead of the labor market? Because the market is not looking for, just first-class people. It's looking for people. It really, not necessarily just fits into all of these things, but we're living in a country where meritocracy is taking a backseat now, and nepotism to a great extent is taking or holding sway in most climes and situations. That's not the case with some of the opportunities out there, but we wish Grace and other well-qualified candidates out there the very best in search of a job or in search of a career that will help them become productive and well-meaning citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. All right. That's it for the news roundup this morning. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back on Daybreak, we're going to look into a variety of issues across this sub-region of Africa. There's some developments that happened a couple of days ago and that is still happening. They're shaping the conversation about the future of ECOWAS and also with regards to how it is going to impact the lives and livelihood of Nigeria and Nigerians. More on that coming up after the break.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on Daybreak. And now we're going to talk about a really dicey situation. The military-led government of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger has planned to proceed with the establishment of a confederation. The Malian Foreign Ministry has said on Thursday as three countries deepen ties through an alliance that threatens the broader West African integration. The military regimes in Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger on January 28 announced their withdrawal from the West African bloc, the ECOWAS. At a meeting in the Burkinabe capital, Ouagadougou, with their three ministers confirmed a joint commitment to withdraw from ECOWAS without delay and continue cooperation under a pact known as the Alliance of Sahel States. With this development, of course, we'll be talking about the effect of the formation of this alliance of the Sahel states out of the ECOWAS and the African Union. Now, this we're going to address and examine the latest also developments that is happening in the Republic of Congo. The DRC Congo has had also a long, sad weekend of a lot of happenings, in the country with the fight between the military, that's the government force, and also the M23, a such situation happening there. So we'll be talking about all of this on today's discussion. We have with us to talk about this a diplomat, Ambassador Haruna Ali Warkan. He is a retired diplomat with the ECOWAS Commission and was a deputy country chair on the United Nations Economic and Social Control. He's also a strategy and security administration expert and cyber practitioner. Good morning, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, viewers. Good morning.
So, Ambassador, let's hear your take first on all of this. I mean, there are a lot of Nigerians that don't really know the situation happening. I mean, it's known fact that, you know, these three countries have come out to say we are exiting ECOWAS, but then people don't really know the details of this confederation that you're trying to create now. So can you give us a full sense of what that is, you know, going to look like?
Thank you for having me again. And well, ECOWAS is passing through one of the most dire situations, one can say. Never before in the history of Africa itself would countries decide out of protest to take actions that are inimical to the very existence of such regional blocs. If we go backwards in history, it became obvious that African continent wanted to bring about a continental government that will bring all countries together and form a single government ultimately. And that was the essence of the regional blocs being easier to manage by way of integration before forming a continental body that can say, today we have a continental government. And all these borders, let us remember, were formed by European colonialists. Africa was never like this. So you have multiple borders that serve no purpose other than dividing the African peoples apart from each other. Now, the three states of the Sahel that have decided to pull out of ECOWAS, and pulling out of ECOWAS contrary to even the ECOWAS treaty provisions of giving 1 year notice. On this program some time ago, we did say that was an ominous step for any country or group of countries to come forward and say, we are pulling out with immediate effect. That is the catch. With immediate effect means they had decided to disregard the constitutional or treaty provisions bringing ECOWAS in the first place. Now, we need to appreciate the fact that this pulling out was as a result of a protest against the sanctions that were imposed on these sovereign governments. And remember too that they did underline or underscore the word sovereign decision. That is to say, they are not subjected to anything. It's a sovereign decision, and they took this decision in their best national interest. Now, we had observed similarly that imposing sanctions on member countries at will was not too good, because when sanctions are imposed, when countries are suspended, it means you shouldn't be talking to these countries. And that gave them room to, on their own, go backwards to look at what was happening. The threat of military intervention too, let's not forget, was quite a bad one for ECOWAS. And this is the after effect of all these measures combined. And we have also said Nigeria, as the hegemon in West Africa and a neighbor of one of the countries, did not play well because we were unable to segregate Nigeria's national interest as against the ECOWAS regional interest. It seems
you're saying that as if there is no alignment between ECOWAS interest and Nigeria's interest. Isn't it supposed to be aligned?
No, there is an alignment, but it has to be desegregated. because national interest should still be different from the sub-regional interest. And that is where mistakes were made, surely, because, for instance, you couldn't have gone ahead to switch off Niger from electricity supply from Nigeria. We did say here that electricity supply was the product of a bilateral agreement that preceded even, ECOWAS formation. And so it was wrong, very wrong for the government to wake up one morning and say they are switching off a whole country from the electricity supply that was carefully negotiated. Negotiated in such a way that Niger had to pipe down on building its own dam on the same river Niger to enable Nigeria to have 2 dams on the river. And now when you go ahead and take decisions that was precipitate, yes, these are some of the outcomes of what we are seeing today. Now, the confederation, as it were today, inevitable, because these countries have seen that they no longer share the ideals of ECOWAS, according to their communique pulling out of ECOWAS. And we can see the role of France in all this has been so difficult to make people understand. Countries of the Sahel are all Francophone, colonized, and they have seen that France's presence has meant nothing. You have military bases that have turned to be nothing other than like a guardsman shop for the uranium mines in Niger in particular, and Mali, the gold mines in Mali, etc. So essentially, it is not even for security. It is more economic, and economic in the interest of France.
Right. And in talking about, those interests, because we've seen the popularity of France completely diminish over the past 2-3 years, and now you were at the summit, so to say, where you get a sense that enough is enough.
Yeah.
There's no going back to this. Sure. I think the military leader in Niger, Abdurrahman Chiani, last week did re-echo that in an interview, saying that, listen, we're not even thinking about going back. So going back is not even on the table.
At all.
They did what they did to us. We survived it, and we're still surviving, and we're pushing forward. Only for us to now hear that they're going to form, a tripartite sort of alliance. And they could do that because they share a common border. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. Give us the upside and the downside to this. For these 3 countries, plus for ECOWAS, what does this breakaway alliance represent in terms of regional cohesion?
Well, for the 3 states, particularly their peoples, not even governments now, for their peoples, it's like a new birth, a rebirth of a long-standing agitation for true independence. This is the time that people, the citizens of these countries, are feeling that, yes, they are Africans, they belong to a country that is different because their leaders have been able to wake up and tell the truth as it should have been all along. Previous regimes had been largely regimes that were managed by France, imposed on the people. Today they see like a homegrown government emerging for the first time, and therefore people are identifying with this. If we recall, at the onset of the military takeovers in these countries, there was some kind of popularity that normally shouldn't have been associated with the coming into military governments into countries. But the opposite was the case. People were so happy. You could see jubilation over the streets and everywhere. Now, these states can be viable. That's the first important thing. Their sovereignties are there, and they are viable because economically, when you bring them together, irrespective of the definition finally of what the confederacy would be like, are they going to be selective confederacy or total confederacy? We wait to see how that fans out. Now, it means these countries will be able for the first time to take independent decisions for themselves without Western influences, which has been the major difficulty of these countries. You have people that cannot take decisions on their own. How can you run a government without a central bank of your own? How can you run a government without security architecture of your own? Whatever these countries were doing, they had to get permission and clearances from France. Never in the history of mankind have some people been subjected to this kind of inhumane treatment by a colonial government in a modern day era. So we see this now as a new wave of independence, and that's why it is viable. And I tell you, the combined capacity of these countries economically would surely show in the few months to come that yes, they mean business and they are going forward, and ECOWAS on the flip side would be the loser because it has jolted this organization of over 40 years.
Do you think, Ambassador, that they have thought this through? Or this is just reactionary, this is just impulsive? Coming together because they are victims, quote unquote, of a targeted attack by ECOWAS after the military takeover?
Yeah, they have thought through because you did ask this question more or less the other time, and I told you, yes, if you go back to the communique they issued, the communique they issued was very terse and very deep because it was dealing with fundamentals, not just happenstances or incidences, no. Not just a reaction to those things. They were reactions to fundamental issues of the Pan-Africanness, which is what regional integration seemed to have lost. We've copied too much of the European Union model of integration. The African Union apparently has been absent on the scene. And so a lot of things are happening that you begin to question, where is the source of this integration that we are not utilizing properly for the benefit of citizens? There has been too much integration of governments across the years since formation of ECOWAS and AU, for instance. But the integration of the people have remained largely unsuccessful. And so you have remained compartmentalized as countries rather than
even
as
with
a region.
The AFCTA, ECOWAS, the no visa restrictions,
all these programs have come to nothing. They have come to nothing because you still cannot cross a border within ECOWAS, for instance, freely. The first protocol on free movement of persons, goods and services, the removal of visa requirements and what have you, have translated to really nothing because the enforcement of these rights have largely remained, if possible, not that, yes, this regional bloc had a way of saying it must be done. So we are left like struggling within a setting that should have given us peace, tranquility, and confidence in ourselves as a people. And therefore, what is happening now in the formation of the Confederation is a revival of Pan-Africanism. Right. And the danger going forward is some other countries are waiting. Togo, Benin are potential candidates of this confederation.
Really?
Yes. They are potential candidates of this confederation. And therefore, let us not perhaps cap our minds as only the three.
You're making it look like, Ambassador, most member states within ECOWAS are not happy with the current arrangement.
Certainly not. There's no two ways about it. Certainly not. Because if the integration had succeeded, we shouldn't be having some of these things. Don't forget, Guinea is on the wings. Guinea, that even started this movement, so to say, is also there, a potential candidate. And one of the difficulties that you might probably say such a confederation would have imposed on these countries would have been access to the sea. because of international trade and some other implications. However, by the time you get in Benin and Togo, for instance, that concern
I mean, it
would have
covers
been-
it. Even Guinea, you can they right there on the Atlantic.
Very good.
Right.
So you see, those problems are there. Remember too that Sierra Leone narrowly escaped, having been probably sanctioned and excommunicated and what have you, and now Nigeria is equally struggling.
Speaking about Nigeria, Ambassador, let's talk about the relationship of Nigeria with all these other countries. I mean, recently we saw leaders of Fulani extractions, from Senegal, Mali, Cameroon, Niger, coming to Nigeria to talk about the insecurity bedeviling the nation, the region in general. So there has been a strong relationship between Nigeria and majority of these West African countries, and right now that is on a shaky line. I mean, considering the cut off of security power supply to the Niger country. But then this group of these three countries coming together have not really, bring out their plan, but on how they're going to align their political, economic, and security matters in general. But do you think, and we all know how working together can actually aid this relationship, so do you think that there is any kind of way that Nigeria could reach out to these people, considering we've seen the military ruler saying there is no probability of them coming back to ECOWAS? But then, is there anything that Nigeria could do to reach out to these people based on their own level of interaction and relationship with the countries?
Well, Nigeria remains the hegemon in the sub-region, and therefore a lot actually depends on what happens here domestically to influence regional politicking and strategy and achievements or failures. We've said before and repeated here, Nigeria needs to do much more in the sense that besides being the chair of ECOWAS today, Nigeria needs to deploy its resources by any description and by any means to ensure the continued integrity of ECOWAS in a way. There are public posturing and there are private diplomatic moves that needs to be strengthened to ensure that some of these things could either be stemmed, reversed, or at least maintained such that the damage doesn't go beyond this. I think that's the key thing right now. The foreign ministry needs to do much more of background diplomacy today, because these are not things for the public. And you need to do this because Nigeria would eventually be the greatest loser in the event of some of these things fanning out of control, as it is already showing signs of it. And the good offices of Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria should be deployed in any means possible whatsoever to see that these countries are brought back into the fold, because sincerely, irrespective of the downsides of integration, remaining in the regional bloc means much more to us as a country, assuming we had been able to maximize our economic potentials over this region, because the departure of France out of the region creates a vacuum. Security, economy, politics.
Just to get your reaction to this, this was over the weekend across the border in Katsina, where the Nigeria Customs has impounded a couple of trucks transporting grains across the border to Niger. And the protest is that, you're stopping businesses, and we obviously know that the borders have been closed. So it's grounding businesses and things like that. Give me a sense of what this says about our relationship with Niger. Do you think that window to negotiate something, even at a bilateral stage, is there? Because it looks like the government is going all out to implement its border closure with Niger, for instance.
Well, remember we said the border between Nigeria and Niger is only on paper. It's only a paper frontier, because the two peoples are the same. The two peoples across the border are the same language, same tradition, same culture, and what have you. So sometimes it would be nice to be at the border to understand the dynamics of what is going on. And enforcing the border closures and all that would be practically impossible between Nigeria and Niger, because people have all along lived their lives as neighbors, very good neighbors, in fact, as one country. And if you come around now to say you want to strictly enforce some of these things, this is the effect that we are seeing now, that people are protesting against some of these things. And it might be very difficult for you to have hunger one side and prosperity on the other side, when there are even no physical boundaries, so to say. There's no river, there's no mountain, no physical whatsoever. So trucks can go in any time. Remember, the first time the previous government imposed the border closures, we saw images of how people were using motorcycles to bring in rice across the border. You can't prevent people from some of these things. And when there's need, there's an effective demand across, people will definitely find ways to do some of these things. And therefore, yes, you attempt to enforce some of these restrictions, and you see the reactions of people. People are not happy with the governments on both sides in this regard, because they want to live their lives. Politicking should be one side. Livelihoods is what is at stake here. And it will continue this way. People will surely embark on civil disobedience when this matter goes beyond reason. And I think the government needs to do much more. You can see what the reactions of the people against the customs have been. It's not going to be easy for anyone to enforce some of these
this kind of sanctions.
No. And then, you know, generally speaking, it is seen as if it is Western manipulated. These are not homegrown issues.
Talking about the Western manipulation, Ambassador, that is where my next question is coming from. I mean, one thing we know is, you know, united, you stand, and divided, you fall.
Yeah.
So for this that is happening currently, not only in Africa, but then West African region, where now it's looking like there are going to be two bodies, you know, in the West Africa. How are we going to, like, how does this affect the African continent and the Western region, considering, you know, already we have a lot of issues starting from economic, political, and other crises? How do you see this, you know, challenge affecting us?
Well, like we said, it's even much more difficult and much more sinister for us in West Africa, because the confederation of the three states is a beginning, not the end. It's a beginning and not the end. And therefore, how it will fan out in the next few months...
Is that a good thing?
Not
or
at
bad
all.
thing?
Very bad thing, but you can't help it. It has come to be. So leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, traditional leaders, and political elites particularly, needs to rethink all this through. Otherwise, yes, we will have problems. You have multiple bodies within West Africa, even before the formation of the Sahel states. Plenty of other mushroom groupings within West Africa that sometimes their interests does not dovetail into the regional bloc's regional interests. So you have issues all over the place that if our leaders don't wake up and do something positive, immediate and effective, surely there will be more of such problems. And when you have breakaways, and breakaways because of protest against the establishment, it becomes even much difficult to manage, because the Sahel states, or the confederating states now, did say they are leaving because they were unhappy with internal impositions that they believe was unjustified.
Right. If we could just take a look at that map one more time, just to drive home the argument and to understand and zoom out to get a sense of it. We have Senegal, which is also teetering on the edges there. Guinea-Bissau. You did talk about those alliances, and you could easily draw a line from Niger, Mali, Guinea, down to the Atlantic. You could also draw it straight to Senegal, should in case something happens, because the entire continent is reeling from that. This basically is remaking the region itself if this particular Sahel alliance holds sway. And we do know that that idea has been mulled over for quite some time. And you did say that this is just the beginning. Is there anything ECOWAS can do to not only stop this, but reverse it?
ECOWAS has to do everything possible. There are plenty of these possibilities. We have said the engagement of real leaders within the sub-region becomes inevitable. And you see, Senegal is already boiling, and that's why it's very difficult for ECOWAS, because now is the time for action. Sitting government has decided to find a way to extend its stay, and come the day for final day for the government, we're going to see another drama, because now the Constitutional Court has said, yes, Mr. President, you don't have a right to extend the elections. However, the elections the timetable has already come and passed. So what are you going to have? A new government coming from somewhere, or what exactly is it going to be? Now, these are the times when ECOWAS needs to take action. It is not when damage has been done, then you come in and start sanction and this. No. Senegal definitely is a very bad candidate for peace and good community relations in the sub-region. Cote d'Ivoire is quiet, but we need to also mention that so much is simmering. People are equally unhappy with what it is, because Cote d'Ivoire represents the epitome of the French alliance. And now that France is being dismantled with speed, unbelievable in some few years back, you will see that there may be some other hotspot that is also brewing, and you will therefore need something much more than what is happening. Now the question is, where is the African Union in all this? Because if your regional bloc is not working, the African Union is quiet, very quiet.
They met over the weekend in Addis Ababa. Are you saying that everything that has been said does not measure up to what you think the African Union should be saying, given what is happening in DRC, in Senegal? I mean, they have issued several statements about Senegal not accepting the postponement of the election and the extension of President Macky Sall's, tenure in office. Are you saying that, this is not concrete enough?
Not at all. Not at all. Resolutions, we've said here, resolutions are not enough. There should be official delegations coming to these countries to talk to the leadership directly, not resolutions. Resolutions can be passed and ignored. After all, such has happened before. Now, it is the time to engage these governments properly. Macky Sall, let us not forget, was once upon a time an opposition leader who harped on the failings of Abdoulaye Wade and the government and propped up a lot of stories and what have you to make the government look so bad, and that's how he got into power. Now today, we are here face to face with a brewing dictator, a brewing dynasty that is in the making. Macky Sall, King Macky Sall, or whatsoever, because that's eventually what's going to happen. If he succeeds today in extending his tenure by 1 day, there is going to be an implosion in Senegal, for sure.
Do you think he's going to want to explore this alliance now? Because it could be his getaway. If ECOWAS are threatening him, do you think he could join this alliance to escape ECOWAS?
Already talks are ongoing behind the scene between all these people. And I tell you, I did say here, the confederation that is coming is just a beginning. It's not the end. More candidates are in the offing, let me say, carrying their applications.
That is not looking good for us, Ambassador. But then, is there any fear of potential tension and, you know, conflict between this tri-state confederation about to happen with other African countries?
Well, it's an example that is very difficult to manage right now, because beside the Francophone countries, I tell you, the Lusophone countries, namely the Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa in particular, have also been so badly managed that some of them have lost their voices because Nigeria is no longer talking. Without Nigeria in the beginning, countries like Angola, like Mozambique, even Guinea-Bissau and the rest of them wouldn't have gotten independence. Therefore, that hegemon effect was what prompted some of these European countries to quietly leave Africa in quotes. And now Nigeria has become too quiet for good. The African Union meeting that just passed, what was Nigeria's take? What was Nigeria's role? Where is the giantness in us when foreign policy issues are being negotiated? We seem to have lost our voice, which is rather sad, because without us showing leadership, yes, there will be problems of this nature that might spiral out of control. And the DRC, like you mentioned, is already a very difficult scenario also to manage, because besides being internal, it is also intra, because what is happening in Kivu and the rest of these places has the backing of a foreign government that is nearby, that is providing support for an internal insurgency.
Okay, let's dive into, I mean, the fact that you already entered DR Congo's issues. I mean, we've seen how from last week, throughout the weekend, how sad situations have been happening. I mean, estimation of saying about 150,000 people were killed and displacement, wounded, you know, a large number of things happening around the Kivu province, the Goma, the Sika, I think. So now you're talking about, there's been a lot of allegations blaming the Rwanda government, saying that, and let's not forget the airstrike. So is it really true? You made mention of that. Is there any valid, you know, should I say, has it been confirmed that the Rwandan government has a hand in this, considering we've seen how other African countries have supported them, like South Africa, you know, supporting them with soldiers, where about 2 lives were lost from the South African army. So is there confirmed issues, and what is it that the Rwanda has against the DR Congo?
Well, you see, here again, it's a play out of ethnicity. The Tutsis are once more, after the Rwandan genocide, the same problem in the DR Congo. Tutsis are equally across the border in DRC and are saying they do not believe in the Congolese government. That's how the March 23 movement, or M23 as is popularly known, came about. They are trying to assert themselves to say, look, they have little to do with the government of the DRC. Rather, they have cultural, tribal, or ethnic affinity with their kith and kin across in Rwanda. And the Rwandan government has never shied away from declaring its position, supporting these rebel groups. This has been the problem. Now, this is happening within the confines of the understanding of the African Union, which you cannot explain. This is the failure of the African Union itself, because 2 countries are now sharply divided within its borders, just across, because there is an ethnic consideration of one group over the other. which means there is a territorial interest of Rwanda in DRC.
There's an allegation that it's based on mineral resources. Is there any truth to that?
There's always that. We're always fighting over something.
The mineral situation has been there for ages, and now we can see these are the effects of arbitrary colonial boundaries drawn without recourse to the social dynamics on the ground of the people. Someone somewhere, some people somewhere, some years, many years ago, sat down in Berlin and brought out the map of Africa and drew frontiers or boundaries and imposed them on Africa to say, this is my own, this is your own, we can give you this, we can give you.
And then we inherited it.
Yeah, sure. And now, here we are, as modern African governments cannot manage this. So Rwanda has never shied away from this position, that yes, it has interest in DR Congo, and the position of minerals is beyond Rwanda and DRC. It's an international conspiracy. To enable exploitation of these minerals, yes, conflicts are deliberately ignited. And for the DRC, its greatest burden is its greatest resource.
Right. Okay, just before we go, let's just circle back to the ECOWAS development. Today, February 19, it is suspected that one of the founding fathers of ECOWAS, General Yakubu Gowon, will be speaking to the press with regards to developments, I reckon, in ECOWAS. Give us a sense of what that represents, what influence he may or may not have, and whether, this sort of intervention from those who imagined the idea of ECOWAS in the first place could help save the day.
Thank you very much. One is more than happy that what is going to happen today, or about to happen now, is happening because on this program, we've made that call, very clear call that General Yakubu Gowon should not keep quiet nor be kept aside in this very difficult moment for ECOWAS, because he happens to be the only surviving founding father of ECOWAS, the only surviving founding father of ECOWAS. And I made the call here, clear. Let ECOWAS swallow whatever pride it may have and use the good offices of General Yakubu Gowon to find ways to rally other leaders across the sub-region, irrespective of which countries are involved. This has nothing to do with just the Sahel states or Senegal or wherever. No, it has to be across West Africa. This is the time for leadership. And since we are lucky as West Africans that he is still alive and capable, he should be engaged to be able to perhaps go around, and I believe very strongly he could rally support and see maybe a slow reversal of some of these losses that has been recorded in the recent past. And I think he stands a great ground, a great opportunity to lead such a vanguard as of today. Otherwise, yes, we have this difficulty that is brewing. All the other countries that are boiling quietly yet for now, the lead is not off. But the moment these leads are off, believe you me, it will become uncontrollable. So I think we should give kudos to General Gowon in this regard for having come forward to this.
That one. Ambassador, a quick one. What will your call be to African Union in terms of all of this that's happening, not only in the West Africa, but the other African countries in general? You made mention of how it's not only, it's like a propaganda, to steal from Africans, but with the help of Africans. Let's not forget that. I mean, someone cannot just enter your home without someone opening the door for them. So what will
Unless
your
they're bandits, of course, they can open the door by themselves. Right.
Well, yes, the African Union, like we said, should do beyond resolutions. I think that is the major problem. Beyond resolutions, there should be action.
What would the action be? Sanctions?
No. Sanctions are counterproductive We've said so. Sanctions are counterproductive. Sanctions are usually against the people. Sanctions as a diplomatic or political tool for change of attitude has never really worked, because after some time, sanctions seems to lose their essence, and sanction busting becomes a big business. And in the end of it all, you see that, yes, we have learned to live with sanctions, and therefore, what is it in it again? So now, African Union needs much more diplomatic moves. Leaders of thought are plenty of all over Africa. They should be assembled to visit some of these countries, talk to leaders directly. It is not in the confines of African Union summit meetings, in the sidelines of these meetings. No, go straight to the countries, talk to the leaders, not just the ruling elite, but other levels of leadership in some of these countries is what we need now, because sincerely, Africa is like going into pieces before our very eyes. And it's quite sad, because we should be doing better than this. Now, the issue of the resource and resource control should be paramount wherever they go, because security-wise, analysis has shown that wherever you see natural resources, the preponderance possibility of conflicts are always tied there. So there is a link. The nexus between resources and conflict has remained very, very eloquent, which we need to address.
Right. It's really sad. At the end of the day, civilians are paying, you know, dearly for it.
We're counting our losses in lives, in the destruction of a continent that has all the potential to be one of the best continents in the world.
Indeed.
Sure. Ambassador, as always, thank you most kindly for your invaluable analysis, as well as your expert insight into some of these issues. Really appreciate you for stopping by this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, it would be time to take a look at the front pages of the national dailies. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back to the program. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Time now to take a look at the front pages of some select national dailies as we bring you up to speed with the stories making the headlines across the country today, Monday, February 19. As always, we start with the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. How about this one? Rising cooking gas price. Nigerians resort to charcoal, firewood. 12.5 kilograms nears 18,000 naira. This is the part where every time you come to the house as the breadwinner, you would really be keen to see how the gas is being utilized by the missus or anyone else. No boiling of water at this point in time, especially when you're using cooking gas or even charcoal or firewood. Experts say environmental hazard looms. Federal government mum on failed promise to crash price. In other news, hardship. Atiku Catholic bishops flay Tinubu's policies. More on that on page 8. Forex scarcity shrinks domestic airlines fleet by over 50%. Why is that? Take a look at the details on page 23. And on page 5, federal government not sure of crime to charge Emefiele with. Just to give you a sense of context, the Senate President was speaking at an event, I guess, to his disadvantage, he couldn't be more vague or ambiguous with what he's trying to say. But he's basically trying to say Emefiele and the people who were running the economy in the past made a mess of it, and now the current administration is trying to hold him accountable. But there's a lot more about what the Senate President said in that event on page 5. Bandits kill 21 in Kaduna, Katsina. Recruit minors in Sokoto. Now this is definitely troubling. Underage children have no business being bandits or criminals. They are going through the early stages of learning what it means to be a human being, and it's quite unfortunate that this is what we have to deal with. And we're well aware of the impact, especially judging from the impact of Boko Haram insurgency, where they were using children as their mules or carriers of their improvised explosive devices. So more on this disturbing developments on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper for today.
The Punch newspaper, the major story is still on cost of living and a protest. Police warn against violence as Labour gives fresh conditions. Avoid violence, police warn the Labour. AFDB says the hardship may lead to social unrest in Nigeria and others. You find the major story on page 2. Naira weakens as banks' dollar sales plunge by $252 million. The federal government and marketers meet today. Tanker drivers insist on strike. Below that, we have a Nigeria-Brazil plan, new MOU as trade drops by $8 billion. 15 trucks of smuggled foods intercepted in Sokoto, that's according to customs. And Navy seeks speedy trial of oil thieves. Now, these are some of the stories that you get on The Punch today.
All right, let's take a look at this day newspaper for today, shall we? Nigeria gradually reversing investment decline in oil and gas industry, according to Komolafe. AFDB says rising oil prices increasing production to support Nigeria's economy in 2024. Nigeria, Brazil seek stronger ties across sectors. Tinubu da Silva meet in Addis Ababa. You can see the president's picture there at the 37th session of the African Union Summit with Brazil's President Lula da Silva. In other news, Labour Party crisis gets messier as Opara drags Abure to court. Idris, it's time PDP governors did work they were elected for. Opposition governors idle, viciously complicit, APC declares. I don't know which of the Idris is saying this, but I think it's part of the political commentary. Cardoso says with $1.8 billion inflow last week, Nigeria's economy has positive outlook. We're still talking about outlook. We're still talking about outlook. Anyway, some of the breakdowns. Akume promises living costs will drop soon. Again, another projection. Bishops say government's reform counterproductive. Atiku says Nigeria has insufficient, unstable, precarious reserve to support free floating rate regime. And in other news, presidency berates ex-vice president, insists facts muddled up. You know what? If things were going great, it doesn't matter what Atiku or anybody says. Nobody cares. However, now that things are not going particularly great, we do care about some of these explanations. Naira's free fall jeopardizing my plans for Bauchi. Mohammed laments. That's Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State. Okay. Everybody can blame the dollar or the Naira for whatever is happening right now. In other news, an analysis, or rather you can find on the blame game how it won't stop Naira's free fall, and I quite agree even without reading that opinion piece. There's too much of that blame game going on right now, and very little is being done to change the lives of Nigerians. That's it on the front page of the This Day newspaper for today.
And with that, of course, we will just head on to, the review of these front pages, because we seem to have little time and more to talk about. We have joining us to review today's front pages, Suleiman Obagaya, the former deputy editor, Nigerian Guild of Editors. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
All right, so let's talk about the thing that has been disturbing every Nigerian. That's the rising cost of everything. But then the cooking gas now, the predictions that was made about a year ago, it's coming, to pass. People are already feeling the heat more and more. What is your take on, the increase of the cooking gas at the moment?
Well, what it bespeaks is that Nigeria is facing the worst energy crisis in its 64-year history, from fossil fuel to electricity and now to LPG, that is the cooking gas. Fossil fuel, I remember last week the NATO, National Association of Road Transport Owners has issued a notice that tanker drivers are going to stop lifting petroleum throughout the country. So talk about crisis in that sector. Very soon, obviously the whole design is for fuel to be selling at around 8,000 or even more per liter. Then electricity. The same last week, the Minister for Power issued a notice that the government can no longer bear the cost of subsidy for electricity. And now, back to LPG, which is the most crucial of the three. Because you see, when you talk about LPG, you are talking about one of the basic necessities of life. And one of there are three necessities of life, that is food, shelter, and...
I mean, you can talk about clothing also.
Clothing, exactly,
right.
yeah. So it's only when you have gas or kerosene or charcoal firewood that you can cook. You know, that is even when you have the food. And yet in Nigeria, we're having crisis also that has to do with, you know, a basic food stock affordability.
Let's not forget, even the business owners that sell this firewood and charcoals are already lamenting of the causes also, and this is something that is affecting the economy. And there is the downside of how all of this would affect the environment, on that one. Anything to say about that? Is there any fear that the federal government will not be able to curb this rise in cost?
Well, you see, unfortunately, these things are doable. Last year, when the cost of LPG rose from 700 to a little above 1,000, the Minister of State for Petroleum in charge of gas set up a committee to crash down the price of cooking gas within a week. Up to now, nothing has happened, and we are talking about 4 months after that committee has been set up. In Nigeria, we are very good at forming committees, setting up committees, at the slightest pretext. You recall that to implement the minimum or livable wage, minimum wage, a committee was set up by the federal government, and that committee was discovered to have raised a memo asking the president to give them 1.5 billion naira. You can imagine. Why don't you use that 1.5 billion naira to make life easier for probably millions of Nigerians? The president ended up approving 500 million from the memo that we saw, saying, okay, for now, use this for now, which means the money would be upscaled, probably up to that same 1.5 billion. So only God knows how much was earmarked for this committee that was raised by the Minister of State for gas, in the bid to crash down the price.
Are these explanations making sense to you? Everything we've been hearing from the government, are things adding up?
No, definitely they are not adding up, because you see, these are realities. If they are adding up, we'll see them, we'll feel the impact. And the impact so far has been very, very negative. Life is becoming very, very impossible for more and more Nigerians. So,
Abdul was throwing shade at the CBN earlier. While reading the front page of this day, where Cardoso was saying about there is going to be inflow and there's positive outlook of what is going to happen. And also in the front page of the Daily Independent, people are complaining that despite the CBN's push, Naira falls to all-time low. So with everything that is happening, the CBN are saying, oh, we've started making decisions and we're seeing it, we're already seeing the future, that it's going to be beneficial to Nigerians. But then Nigerians and experts, when it comes to economic and financial, tend to see these things differently.
Yeah.
So how are we going to merge all of this? I have heard this 1,001 times, even while driving to work. I was hearing it on radio. People are saying Nigerians are good with bringing laws and all that, but then implementing is the issue. And you also made mention of that. So how come all of these things are coming and are not really aligning?
Well, the forest crisis is going to be deeper in Nigeria because the policies being implemented by the government, the ones rolled out by dictated by the Bretton Woods institutions. And the Bretton Woods institutions have never, throughout history, made policies that make life easier for citizenry of any country. You can mention any one country in the whole globe where either IMF or the World Bank or a combination of both have initiated policies that have made life easier. So Cardoso talking about positive outlook. You see, Nigerians will never believe in any positive outlook until they feel positivity in the way their lives, in the way they run their lives. And every day is negativity. That is what we feel. That is what Nigerians get to see on the ground. So is what we see on the ground or what we feel in reality, that is the reality as far as Nigerians are concerned.
Right.
Not what CBN or the Bretton Woods institutions tell us.
And what do you make of the commentary around the current economic hardship? I know when political figures speak, they are interpreted through the lens of partisan politics, but we have, Catholic bishops weighing in and saying, listen, everything you're doing is just counterproductive because lives are being, impacted negatively by all of these reforms that you're asking us to believe in, that you're trying to work on. What do you make of the commentary? And also, if we can just juxtapose that with the recent comments or statements coming from the Africa Development Bank about Nigeria, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Angola being on the brink of social unrest. We've seen some of it already over the past few weeks.
Well, these are very sensitive issues, but if I were the government or if I were a principal part of the government, I would have rather taken the advice of the African Development Bank that the signal, is very ominous. Anything can happen. Is a reality we have to talk about, even as sensitive as it is. And even the Sultan of Sokoto led traditional rulers last week in a meeting in Kaduna, where they talk about the same thing. The fact that anything can happen, things can get out of hand, unless government does something pretty fast. And so it's up to the government, honestly, to face reality. The government, I believe the government means well, but then it is said that even the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it's not just about good intention, it's about making sure those good intentions are implemented to the satisfaction of the citizenry. Right now, like I said earlier, all these good intentions are what the president or the economic team are being dictated to by the...
You don't think this is their own, ideas, these are their own convictions, this is the manifestation of the quote-unquote renewed hope agenda? You don't think this is purely an internally domesticated idea that they're trying to implement?
Well, if the renewed hope agenda is to do with making life difficult for Nigerians or impossible for Nigerians, then of course we don't want it to continue.
You know what they say, it's darkest before dawn.
Well, of course, it's understandable that the previous administration of Muhammad Buhari has really messed up the country, especially the economy, and many other sectors also of everyday life in Nigeria. But then the policies being implemented by this government seem to be in a rush, seem to be uncoordinated, and that is why there is no, there doesn't seem to be any light at the end of the tunnel. It's hopelessness all through. I do disagree with people who feel maybe that there will be light at the end of the tunnel. It's only when, you
already.
You say?
You have given up already.
Yeah, I have given up, honestly.
It's just 8 months into a 4-year term.
Okay, at this point, Abdullah comes with a lot of sarcasm.
It's surprising that, in less than a year, you think, it's gone already.
There is this, I think, Maya, you have to help me. There is this Hausa adage that says, Juma at the night he killed.
Oh, no. Don't go to Sumaya for that.
I know you won't help me. That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that.
It's all about prediction. Like, you tend to see things that are going to be good, like right from the start or from the middle at least. So, yeah.
See?
Message passed.
I told you.
You want me to do it literally to tell you the Friday that would be good, you would start seeing it from the Wednesday.
Exactly. Exactly, yes, exactly.
Literally.
So 8 months is enough, honestly.
Right.
Like I said about 2 weeks ago when I featured on this program, the honeymoon should be over after 6 months. And besides, don't forget, the president said he was ready to hit the ground running. Secondly, he said he should not be pitied, that even though he knew it was going to be a very Herculean task, that he was all prepared to provide solutions. So the excuses coming up now are just simply because the president has not been able to deliver on the promises he made.
Okay. And in talking about security, let's talk about the recent bandit attacks in Kajuru, Kaduna State, in Katsina, and also this disturbing trend that they are recruiting minors now, because according to this reporting on the pages of the Daily Trust, there were kids as young as 13 and 14 that were paraded as suspects by the police over alleged kidnapping and armed banditry. 13 and 14-year-olds.
I feel like talking about that, I don't think it's something that is just recent. There was a video that, was making round about a year ago of a 12 to 13-year-old boy explaining how he can easily cock a gun and all that. Yes, the video was done in house and he was explaining everything. So we have seen this happen before, but then now it's becoming alarming because now they are getting wind of all of this happening.
Exactly. You see, the problem has to do with the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria, which is the highest in the world.
Especially in the north.
Especially in the north. One of every 3 children, school-age children in especially northern Nigeria, are out of school. All in all, 15% of the entire number of out-of-school children in the whole world are from Nigeria. Nigeria accounts for 15% of that number. So it's only easier. And don't forget also the fact that hunger has now been introduced to the mix. Parents can no longer feed their children, and when they don't feed them, they have to go out to scavenge for whatever they can lay their hands on. And courtesy of that, by the time you see someone giving you some little crumbs, as little as maybe 50, 100 naira or 1,000 naira. With 1,000 naira, I believe they can easily, I'm not giving them ideas, I know they have better evil ideas about how they do this recruitment. But then, you see, when you push someone to the world, there is nothing practically that he can do apart from resorting to every means possible to survive. I believe that is why.
What about the insecurity? I mean, typical example of what happened in Plateau State, where we saw a lot of killings and a lot of children were not even accounted for. And is there any possibility of them taking, these young children and grooming them into being these hardcore criminals? Because a child will learn at the earliest stage. If someone that is already of age and joined this group can go all be out to kill and extort from people, then imagine a child that would be groomed, from the earliest. It breeds heartless people around.
It would be much more
dangerous.
dangerous.
Be insecurity also, making these children to be prey in hands of these people.
You see, all this has to do with the management of the economy of the country. Unless the government addresses the issue from its foundation, we can be able to resolve or upscale our security architecture or infrastructure, rather, security infrastructure. These are realities government must face. It has to address the issue from its foundation. It has to listen to people who are experts. I remember a good friend of mine, Dr. Huzages, I'm not advertising anybody. He is a security expert trained by the United States. He has been talking on the radio, on television, even on Trust, I think, radio or some other platforms. He has been saying he has a lot of solution to the current security problem, yet nobody has approached him. He has not been invited by the security services to offer his advice. I also know of someone who I am absolutely sure has very cogent solution to some of the problems we face. He has written letters to the security services. None of these letters has even been acknowledged. So there is this feeling that they know it all and they don't want to listen to anybody. So it's part of the problem we are facing. And they say security is everybody's business. If security is everybody's business, and somebody says he has a solution, why don't you listen to the person?
Right. Okay, just your quick thought on what the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, said about, trying to get MFLA, trying to get one of these allegations to stick. the firearms charge, all the procurement irregularity with buying the luxury vehicles, the 6.5 million election observers, all of these things. I mean, he's saying that, listen, they made such a mess that we're even struggling to see which one sticks. Your quick thoughts on that one?
What, if they don't know how to or what to charge Emefiele with, why don't they release him? It's such a shame that the number 3 citizen in Nigeria is going to say this in a public forum. It's such a shame, honestly. There are many ways, many reasons to charge Emefiele. Many grounds. So if you ask me, I can mention probably 10. So what is so difficult in coming up with charges?
It actually would not, make the government look good in front of the public. But anyways, thank you so much for your analysis, for your time, for reviewing the front pages with us. Suleiman Obagaya, former deputy editor, Nigerian Guild of Editors. Thank you for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure.
All right, and with that, of course, we have to wrap up the show here on Daybreak. You can, of course, catch us via our social media platforms. I am Sumaya Abubakar. Have a lovely day.
Sumaya said we have to wrap up, as if she wanted to stay any more longer. But anyway, that's our show for you today. Feel free to join us tomorrow. We'll be back live at 8 a.m. Until then, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Join us at the top of the hour for 360 Sports. Thank you for watching.